А это что такое? Исправил ты ему смс, дальше. И что тогда нет? Не надо, это имеется в виду.
Thanks for checking out GuitarTricks.com recently. For a short time, when you sign up, you'll get an awesome discount on an annual subscription when you use code ONLY99. It's one of the best deals we ever offer on membership. Our award-winning lessons have helped over 3 million.
Let's get to Jim Sciutto at the voting desk. He has the latest on the lawsuits being filed by the Trump campaign in multiple battleground states. Jim.
Well, John, I don't have to tell you this, and of course viewers will be familiar. The Trump campaign filed a lot of lawsuits before this election, primarily dealing with voter access. Lost most of those. They're filing a lot of lawsuits since the election, and these deal mostly with the vote count, particularly in states that are close or that Trump is behind, but believe they may be able to catch up. So let's go state by state here. And I should note, as I go through these, that CNN has talked to a lot of legal experts on these cases, and in general they say unlikely to be wins for the Trump campaign. One, evidence is thin to this point. Two, most of them deal with cases where the number of votes is too small to sway the outcome. But they're happening. let's talk about Pennsylvania first. The lawsuits here focusing on, you may remember, just before the election, law passed in Pennsylvania allowed votes that arrive up to 3 days after Election Day to be counted, mail-in votes. That was challenged before. Supreme Court let that law stand, but conservative justices left the door open to, well, the possibility of perhaps some of those, quote-unquote, late-arriving ballots are enough to turn the election. Could there be some questions here? A possibility. So big question in Pennsylvania on that is, what is the margin? What is the number of those that arrive after Election Day? That's the lawsuit in Pennsylvania right now. Let's look at Michigan. Here, the Trump campaign has filed a lawsuit asking to halt the counting of votes statewide. Why? They are demanding what they're calling meaningful access to observe the processing, in particular, of mail-in ballots there. Of course, Michigan has been called by this network and others, but Trump campaign wants to halt the counting there. Let's go on to Nevada. This state has not been called yet, and we may be getting more data there later today. Keep in mind, before I go down the details of this lawsuit, that Republicans tried this past twice already and failed. But 3 times the charm, they hope. They're going after it again. The focus here is looking at signature matching software used in that state to match signatures on ballots that come in. It uses some artificial intelligence. That's the basis of their claim there. And what they're demanding is to stop counting there as that issue is adjudicated. Finally, let's look at Georgia here, another state, as you were just saying, John, with Phil, extremely tight margins here. And that's why you're seeing a lawsuit pop up. And this one deals with an extremely small number of ballots, which Republicans say these were ballots that were still being processed, somehow ended up in a pile of ballots ready to be tabulated. That's their focus there. Like the other lawsuits, they deal with such a small number of votes, unlikely to turn things there, but they're pursuing. Remember, this is a president who likes to file lawsuits on a whole host of things. They tried it before the election, mostly on voter access, lost most of those cases. They're trying after the election. It's a close one, and they're pushing these hard. I should note, just before I came on air, another lawsuit filed in the state of Pennsylvania by the Trump campaign. This one deals with 2 issues, the issue of poll watchers there and voter ID laws. The Trump campaign claiming in this lawsuit that there was an attempt here, in their words, to disenfranchise Republican voters. So add that to the bin of lawsuits in the state of Pennsylvania there. Again, big picture, we expected these lawsuits to happen. The legal experts CNN has been talking to say evidence thin, number of votes too small to affect the outcome, but there are lots of them here. And as we've watched in the last several months, sometimes the courts can surprise. John, we'll keep on top of it.
Jim Sciutto, terrific work. One point you made that I think is worth repeating. The margins matter here. If you're dealing with tens of thousands of votes in the margin there, lawsuits almost never make any kind of difference. So that's what we're watching in several states. Michigan, by the way, is a 100,000 vote difference right now for Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden in the lead there, so unlikely any lawsuit would make a difference there. Jim, thank you. Let's go over to Allison Camerata now here in New York.
Okay, John, let's stay on the topic of those lawsuits and get some analysis from 2 CNN election law analysts and experts. We have Rick Pildes, professor of constitutional law at NYU School of Law, and Jonathan Diaz, who serves as legal counsel for the Campaign Legal Center. Great to have both of you. Okay, so Jonathan, you heard Jim Sciutto lay out all of those different lawsuits right now. President Trump's campaign has launched this slew of challenges in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada, Georgia, Wisconsin. Are there any that you just heard Jim lay out that you think do have merit and will move forward?
Not really. I think Jim's summary was, pretty much on target. These lawsuits don't appear, at least to me, to have a particularly high chance of success. And even if they did, they're not dealing with the kinds of numbers of ballots or the types of issues that are likely to be outcome determinative in any of these states. The one possible exception is that Pennsylvania lawsuit that is already before the Supreme Court, dealing with those late arriving ballots and that deadline extension. But again, it's going to come down to what the ultimate margin is in Pennsylvania before those late arriving ballots are counted, and if there are enough ballots that arrive between the end of the day on November 3rd and the deadline tomorrow for that to make a difference. And so, as of right now, we just don't know.
Right, we don't. We will be speaking to the governor there soon, though, and hopefully getting some information. But Rick, let's zero in on Pennsylvania, because even before all of that litany of legal challenges, you had some real concerns that Pennsylvania could be the center of chaos. So what was it about Pennsylvania's voting process that caused you so much concern?
Well, there are a bunch of things that come together here. I have said that Pennsylvania is sort of the worst combination of a potentially decisive state with not such great election law policies. Number one, the fact that they couldn't start processing these ballots until Election Day. Number two, not clear enough guidance provided in advance about certain key issues, which should have been done. We knew if it came down to Pennsylvania, there would be kind of messy issues here. I do agree, though, that the litigation so far, it does not seem likely to, A, affect enough ballots, and B, be all that likely to succeed. The suit against Pennsylvania is the most serious one legally, the one about this 3-day window. But I expect the number of ballots that actually come in that last 3 days is going to be a lot smaller than many people might think. People got their votes in early.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it, but we will see, and we'll try to get those exact numbers. But Jonathan, whether or not you think that these have merit, do they slow down the counting, and do they tie up somehow the results?
They can. You know, if election officials have to be the ones to respond to these lawsuits and to give the facts to you know, state or county attorneys who have to reply to these complaints and these briefs, they shouldn't stop or slow down the counting absent some court order, and so far we haven't seen anything like that. But they do put additional strain on election officials who are working very hard, as we've seen already this morning, to finish these counts so that we can get closer to a final resolution.
Rick, how about recounts? Are those automatically triggered because the margins are so narrow in some places?
So that varies from state to state. In Wisconsin, the candidate can request a recount if the margin is under 1%, and the president's team has done that already. In other states, there are automatic recounts that are triggered if the margin is within, for example, 0.5%. It's possible we're going to have automatic recounts in a couple of these states. Recounts rarely change votes by anything other than a very kind of tiny margin, a few hundred votes here and there. Recounts don't affect thousands of votes, let alone tens of thousands of votes.
Okay, Rick Pildes, Jonathan Diaz, thank you both very much. Let's go back to how the map looks with John Berman.
После контакта с человеком, зараженным ОРВИ и гриппом, принимайте ингаверин, ведь он снижает риск развития заболевания. Ингаверин. Профилактика – ваша лучшая тактика.
Aux États-Unis, les démocrates gardent le contrôle de la Chambre des représentants, mais les chances d'un changement en bleu du Sénat s'amenuisent après la réélection de plusieurs sénateurs républicains. Comme Susan Collins, par exemple, sénatrice du Maine, dont les sondeurs prévoyaient la défaite, et pourtant réélue à son poste. Susan Collins est une républicaine modérée qui a rompu depuis quelques années avec le président Donald Trump. En parallèle de la présidentielle américaine, avaient lieu en effet le 3 novembre les élections parlementaires.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school,
what do you guys think? We excited?
Or back to work, we're keeping you safe.
I love being back!
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
Они падают, они падают! Квартиры, автомобили, ноутбуки и другое имущество банкротов падают.
Я врун ты просто все, он говорит, я. Ну нет, ну народ, на себя раздумал. Ты не играешь ничего там. Ты не ешь ничего. А, вот это лично. Ну нет, ну давай. А, ну нет. А, ну нет, ну давай. А, ну это он, вот это он говорил о тебе так. Нет. Нет, ну нет, да. Да чё ты? А, я забыл, что там написано. Нет, я помню, надо было. Я сам так понял. ことですね。
Aux États-Unis, les démocrates
что, блин? Сразу надо.
Stop the count, which you would think he would not want in Arizona because he.
Thanks for checking out GuitarTricks.
So first to Pennsylvania. Let's go right there. Joe Biden has cut it into Donald Trump's lead significantly. Around this time yesterday, Trump led by some 700,000 votes. Now with 89% of the expected vote in, Trump now leads by just over 164,000 votes, with a lot of mail-in ballots still being counted. We could look specifically at Philadelphia County, home to a lot of Biden voters. He currently leads by 60%, and we are still waiting for more than 244,000 votes from Philadelphia County. Biden is currently at 79%. Hillary Clinton won Philadelphia County with 82% in 2016. We're also waiting for about 80,000 votes from Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh is located. Biden currently leads by 19 percentage points in that county. And over in Bucks County, the state's fourth most populated county, where unemployment rates and deaths per capita linked to COVID are some of the highest in the country. Trump currently leads by just over 3,200 votes, with 58,000 votes still expected. Trump lost Bucks County by less than 1 percentage point back in 2016.
And while we're talking about Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and the state of Pennsylvania, Willie, let's just, if we look at some of the numbers that I just had sent to me, big difference in 16. In Montgomery County, Biden's up by 26. That's up from 21 4 years ago. In Chester, he's up by 17. That's up about for Hillary Clinton's 9%. Delaware by 23. That's also up. And Bucks will end up likely being a wider margin than 16. But Pennsylvania is one of those states that if you look at the trends and you see where it's going, and It's been going that way for the past couple of days. It looks like that's a state where Joe Biden's going to catch up in much the same way he caught up in Wisconsin and Michigan. If, again, as I keep saying, the past is prologue, it looks like he's going to have enough votes, which he's getting at a quick enough clip, that he could catch up. Georgia's a little tighter. Georgia, we're going to go down. I mean, we're going to go down to the last 10,000 votes there. Biden can catch up there. Most likely will get very close, if not go ahead by 10,000 votes. But then you look at Arizona. That's actually going in an opposite direction. And it's Donald Trump who's picking up votes at a pretty good clip. They still have quite a few to count there. And the votes that are coming in Arizona, we're looking, of course, at Pennsylvania right now, but the votes that are coming in Arizona are ballots that were dropped off at the end. And if Arizona is anything like Florida as far as the waves of voters, the closer to the election those ballots are dropped off, those absentee ballots are dropped off, the more likely voters are to be voting for Donald Trump. And certainly in a batch that was released last night, we saw an almost 60-40 split in favor of Donald Trump, and the president's going to need to continue on that pace. I think Steve Kornacki said he's going to have to pick up 59% of all votes that remain in Arizona to overtake Joe Biden. So that's going to be a close one. And then, of course, Nevada later on today, which the Biden camp feels extremely confident about.
They feel extremely confident about that. Arizona still confident from the Biden camp, but you're right, as those come in, they get a little bit less confident. Arizona is still too early to call. Right now, Joe Biden leading President Trump, as you said, by about 68,000 votes, still waiting for votes from all-important Maricopa County. The election department for Maricopa, which is Arizona's most populous county, tweeted overnight about 275,000 ballots still to be counted, plus provisionals, adding more results will come at 7 p.m. local time today. Not clear when other counties in Arizona will report out their latest figures. But Jonathan Lemire, this is a place, as you know, that the Trump campaign in the White House is focusing very closely, the state of Arizona. We've seen some of his supporters out chanting, count the votes there. Obviously, in other states, they're saying stop the count, so they should make up their mind about whether or not they want the votes to be counted. But Jonathan, how close does the White House think Arizona is? It may not matter if Joe Biden wins Pennsylvania today. He's got enough to go over 270. So where is the White House focused this morning?
The White House's focus is sort of in the closing days of the campaign is pretty scattershot. It's a lot of places at once, but you certainly hit the two states that they're most zeroed in on right now. Arizona to start, and we should note the Associated Press and Fox News have already called to Arizona for Joe Biden, and that's something that has enraged the Trump campaign. We've spoken publicly about it. We've reported that the night on election night when Arizona first went, was Fox News made that first call, that sent a chill through the president's watch party in the East Room of the White House. That is one, as you said, that they believe that they can pick up the number of votes needed to flip it, and certainly it's where they're trying to contest this election right now. They feel that they have the ability to change this, even as the votes come in from Maricopa County. But it should be noted, there's been also a lot of second guessing in Trump world about Arizona. That's a state that loomed for a while now as a problem. And some members of the campaign, including Brad Parscale, who, of course, was demoted over the summer, back in the early days of 2020, suggested the president needed to spend more time there. They saw some early warning signs there, and the president was reluctant to do so, in part because he didn't like traveling out west. He is so reluctant to spend any nights away from his own bed that he didn't want to be out there, which would require an overnight stay. The other focus is Pennsylvania, and the math here is obvious. They feel they need Arizona and Pennsylvania in order to keep any sort of feasible legal challenge going, to show that they still have a possible path to 270. Pennsylvania, their campaign manager Bill Stepien declared victory in Pennsylvania. On a conference call with reporters, he declared victory. We all know that's not how this works.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories, and you can click
At this point, after the election, I'm mostly just popcorn, Halloween candy, and LaCroix. That's it. Whether President Donald Trump ultimately wins or loses a second term, Tuesday's election proves something beyond the shadow of a doubt. He has effectively broken modern politics. Or to put an even finer point on it, Trump has exposed that the ways we poll, analyze, and predict election outcomes have deep flaws. Heading into Election Day, every shred of available evidence suggested that Trump was likely to lose, and lose convincingly, to former Vice President Joe Biden. The incumbent trailed by high single digits in national polling. He was behind in polling averages in virtually every swing state. He was being drastically outspent on television in the vast majority of battlegrounds. Professional campaign handicappers were unanimous on this point. This election was likely to border on landslide territory for Biden. Quote, "Less than a week out from Election Day and President Donald Trump is playing catch-up," wrote the Cook Political Report's Amy Walter in late October, adding, "In 2016, he won 30 states and Maine's 2nd Congressional District and their 306 electoral votes. Today, just 20 states worth 125 electoral votes are safely in his column." And yet, the Biden landslide, or even a clean win for the former VP, never emerged on election night. While you'd almost certainly rather be Biden than Trump at this point when you look at where things stand in voting in critical states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, it's clear that Trump, if he loses, will not be swept out of office in a wave election that's a clear rebuke of his first 4 years in office. So Trump's overperformance of his poll numbers almost everywhere in the country, not to mention the likelihood that Republicans will maintain control of the Senate and gain seats in the House, although fall short of winning the majority, are simply not explainable by the available polling data going to the election. They are just not. And this isn't the first time we've seen this happen. In 2016, most polling, not to mention the professional handicapping types, suggested that Hillary Clinton was on her way to a comfortable, if not crushing, victory. That obviously didn't happen. So one miss is a potential anomaly, a glitch in the matrix. 2 straight presidential elections in which Trump overperformed pre-election polls and the expectations of the professional political class, and his party did the same thing down ballot, proves that there are systemic issues with the way we poll and cover elections, or at least elections that involve Donald John Trump. So what are those problems, you ask? Okay, here we go. First, polling seems to have again proven inadequate in accurately reflecting Donald Trump's voting coalition. In virtually every swing state, including those that he wound up losing, polling underestimated Donald Trump's final vote share. Now, whether that's a function of the so-called shy Trump voter phenomenon, people who back Trump but don't want to tell that to pollsters, or some other more technical issue about how people who back vote share. Now, whether that's a function of the so-called shy Trump voter phenomenon, people who back Trump but don't want to tell that to pollsters, or some other more technical issue about how polling samples are put together and how well they reflect the actual political realities in the country, well, that remains to be seen. But what's extremely clear is that political polling has some very real issues that need to be addressed. And it's not just polling. Other traditional metrics that are used by political prognosticators like me are also failing or have already failed. Take money raised and spent, particularly on TV ads in a presidential race. It may no longer be an indicator of much of anything. Biden drastically outspent Trump, just as Clinton drastically outspent Trump in 2016, and yet the race in both instances was far tighter than the spending numbers would have led you to believe. It's possible then that given the wall-to-wall coverage of the presidential candidates by cable TV and all sorts of other media outlets, and the mass...
мне почему? Если что-то не думаешь, нет. Ну типа это его. Ну нет, на работу тебя не берут никто, не берут тебя на работу из-за меня, из-за тебя на работу не берут никого. Ну нет, наоборот, ну нет. Из-за меня на работу, что я не понимаю? Все на работу надо идти.